Oh,
Got carried away cleaning up your area.
Ms. Collins, are we ready to go ahead and start the board meeting? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is 5:28, and I am calling our regular board meeting of November 15, 2022 at 5 o'clock to order. Let's go to item number 2, the Pledge of Allegiance. If I can ask everybody, please stand. I did. They said it's 5. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. At this time, we will have our moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go item number 4, recognitions. I'll ask our board to go ahead and go to the front of the podium, and I'll ask Ms. Liza to come and please share those recognitions with them.
Good evening, Board President Velarde, board members, and Superintendent Saavedra. It is my pleasure to be here once again to recognize some of our most dedicated students and supportive community members. Our first recognition goes to students and staff from throughout the district who showcase their creative and intellectual skills. El Paso ISD participated in the annual KTSM Weatherfest on October 23rd at Ascarate Park. Students had to create and collaborate with their peers in constructing a weather-related project. And of course, our students did not disappoint. Students, along with principals, teachers, assistant principals, parents, worked after school, weekends, and throughout their fall break. And that hard work paid off with innovative projects. One of them analyzed how weather affects athletic performance. Another used hissing cockroaches to test mood in our dry climate. Students in elementary, middle, and high school categories competed with other schools within the district and then against their counterparts from other districts. We would like to call up each campus, their principal, and their teacher or sponsor to recognize them for their dedication and participation. We'll start with Burgess High School. And if we compose for a photo? Pose for a photo, please. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Thank you. Next, I'd like to recognize Coronado High School. And again, if we can pose for a photo with the board. Uh-huh. You can just step a little this way. There we go. Congratulations. Young Women's Academy? Do we have Young Women's Academy here? Congratulations, thank you. Thank you, ladies, good job. Letting the kids come forward is taking too long. Young wigs, we can just move. You got, great, thank you, congratulations again. We move on to our middle schools. Our first middle school is Wiggs Middle School. Richardson. Okay. And then Clendenin. Smile. Congratulations. Thank you. For our next middle school, Richardson Middle School. Clendenin, Guerrero, and Whitaker. Yeah, and then the winners are at the end. There you go. Oh, congratulations. Moving to our elementaries, Clendenin Elementary School.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have, this is Guerrero? Yeah, you got her. Okay. And then Trans Mountain, Guillen. Thank you. Congratulations. Guerrero Elementary School. You want to, yeah, join them for the photo. Yeah, okay. Okay. You guys are Whitaker, right? Okay. And lastly, for elementary is Whitaker Elementary. Okay. Okay. We have Burgess? I mean, Trans Mountain. Yeah. Trans Mountain? Okay. And for our final three is for our district winners. First place for the high school category was Trans Mountain Early College. No, Florida is next. Yeah, and then we're gonna do Guillen last.
the overall winners. I'm gonna do them at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can move you guys. You can, yeah. There you go.
I think it's tomorrow.
Remember? The item we added. Our, congratulations. And our first place for elementary is Cielo Vista Elementary School. Huh.
And you're Guillen, right? Okay.
Oh, congratulations again. And now we recognize the team that earned KTSM Weatherfest Top Middle School Honor and the overall first place prize. The team's project involved how climate change has impacted the El Paso environment. And the honor goes to Guillen Middle School. Congratulations, thank you. Let's give all the students, teachers, and principals a big round of applause. Okay. Next, El Paso ISD and the Education Foundation would like to recognize two community partners that consistently offer financial support for the foundation student scholarships and classroom grants. Texas Gas Service partnered with the Education Foundation to award El Paso ISD secondary teachers $10,000 in grants for classroom enrichment projects involving STEAM. The goal of the Texas Gas Service Public School Funding Program is to enhance the classroom experience in middle and high schools to promote workforce development. The EPISD Education Foundation is grateful for Texas Gas Service's continued commitment to providing this grant opportunity for El Paso ISD secondary teachers. Please help me and Russell Wiggs from the foundation welcome Liz O'Hara from Texas Gas Service to receive this recognition.
How are you? Congratulations. Okay.
Yep. I can't see. Israel. Thank you again. Our next community partner is El Paso Electric. This spring, El Paso Electric contributed $15,000 to the Foundation's Scholarship Fund for the class of 2022. Their contribution helped the EPISD Education Foundation award nearly $100,000 in scholarships and help deserving seniors go to college. Please help me welcome Leslie Chagnon from El Paso Electric. Thank you. Thank you very much to both of our community partners. This concludes all of our recognitions this evening. Thank you.
We'll give our team just a couple of minutes to come back before we go into public forum. Actually, Ms. Hanani, if you'd like to go ahead and just read the statement for us.
The district is a local government body charged with serving the educational needs of all school children in our district, and board meetings must be focused on meeting this charge. In meeting that charge, the district board meetings are public meetings under the Texas Open Meetings Act to conduct the business of the district. They are not, however, meetings of the public. Therefore, all persons in attendance are expected to display civility and decorum, that is, respect for other persons without the use of insulting, profane, threatening, or abusive language. Public comment will not be used for personal attacks. In addition, you are directed to the district's complaint procedures and board policy regarding employee, student, parent, or public complaints. The Deputy Superintendent of Administration is in attendance if you wish to discuss a matter with him. Please note that during public forum, specific factual information or recitation of existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries. However, the board may not deliberate or decide any subject that is not posted on its agenda.
Okay, we have all our board members back, so we get started.
For public forum, our first speaker is Sebeli de Atzlan.
Good evening. My name is Semeli de Aslan. I'm a part of Familias Unidas del Chamizal, and we have come here tonight with a few parents and a few students. Many of you know us as far as our work in the buoy feeder pattern, but we have seen a lot of need in our area. We have been meeting with Representative Leah and some of our concerns, but it's really important now as we enter a new era that we reckon with the past as far as how EPISD has treated barrio schools, the parents and the students within them. And we as parents have always been willing to work with the district, and we look forward to continue to strive to make our schools better for our students and for our community as a whole. This isn't just about our children, it's about everyone's children. And so as we're seeing, since the pandemic and coming back, there's a lot of concerns that parents and students have brought to our attention. One that really is most pressing and heartbreaking for me is the social and emotional health of our children. Our children come home in tears often. Some of the things that are being told to them, not bullying with their peers, but from some of the staff and the teachers, and we really feel that there is a need for funding for everyone. I think that teachers are on the verge of burnout. Students, unfortunately, are losing any semblance of mental health, and often just a smile on their face. On the daily, I have concerns with there's not enough bus monitors, not enough teachers, and of course, these are all safety concerns. For instance, in the mornings, we have our cross monitor to help cross the street. They leave exactly at 7:50 a.m., and if any of you know the Guillen streets, and many of the students walking to school are being left to cross those streets alone is dangerous. Those are just examples, but we really think that there needs to be cultural programs that address the social and emotional health. We're going to have a few parents and students share with you some of their testimonies, but we just really want to reiterate that parents, and including parents, is the key and the solution moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Ila Viegas.
Good evening. I really appreciate the time that you've afforded us to come in and have these conversations or give our concerns, but most of all is the opportunity to see how we can move forward to really address the issues that have been brought by parents, by our communities, by our group. It's been 7 years that I've been analyzing the situation in the barrio, analyzing the situation in all our schools, analyzing what the children have been telling us, what the parents, what the teachers, our principals, the outcomes, everything that it's associated with the education of our children, right? And so when I talk to you in respects to the Chamizal, we're actually talking about a geographical location that we share similar needs, similar language, culture, practices, and similar situations that are really kind of impede the development of our children and the ability for them to be able to truly take advantage of the education that EPISD is providing for the entire district, right? And so I know that as board members, your responsibility is to look out for your community, to understand it, and to speak in favor of improving education and addressing, and truly being able to say, no child is gonna be left behind when it comes to what we're presenting. And you might not agree in everything, but I genuinely wanna think that as well as the parents in the barrio, that our interest is in all the children, whether they're economically challenged, whether they have special needs, whether they're English language learners, whether they don't have any needs and they're in a stable situation and they, automatically are able to learn without any real help or assistance. With that said, is that we are very concerned as to what has happened to our community and how the district has evaluated equity and said that it's the same as equal instead of equity, right? And so when we talk about equity, what is that really? How does that really look like? In forms of more teachers, in forms of more programs, in forms of safety, in form of a culturally sensitive activities. What does that look like? And so with that said, we do see a great problem with equity within the district. The demographics are stark contrast when you compare them to other areas in El Paso. The demographics don't lie. It's there. The highest percentage of English language
Your time is
learners.
up.
And so with that said, I hope that with the decision you made today, that this is really considered and we can move forward in working together with a more equitable education for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Maria Rodriguez. Maria, is Maria here?
Sorry, voy a hablar en español. Mi nombre es María Rodríguez y soy abuelita de Poleda Arellano y Lucas Arellano. Ellos van a la escuela Douglas. Han pasado algunos incidentes y yo siempre estoy ahí dentro de todo lo que pudiera ayudar a mis nietos en educación y también en lo que pudiera perjudicarlos. Estoy al pendiente. Yo veo que en Douglas se necesitan programas de educación para niños, programas de terapias psicológicos para los niños, aunado a que hace falta personal. No sé por qué cuestiones ha disminuido el personal, se necesita coach, se necesita enfermeras, se necesita maestros. Ahorita los suplentes de maestros son personal que no están preparados, que no tienen una educación académica escolar para dedicarse a cuidado de niños. Está habiendo mucha deficiencia en Escuela Douglas para que los niños se eduquen. Yo pido por favor que pongan atención a esta escuela de barrio. El 50% somos mexicanos, pero el resto son ciudadanos americanos, nacidos en Estados Unidos, en El Paso, Texas. Y he visto que hay mucha disminución en la educación. Mi nieta trae algo que ella tiene 10 años, que ha sucedido. Ahorita le di un poco de pena, espero adelante pase. Mi nietecito de 7 años acaba de pasar la semana pasada un incidente que no me gustó, que es a lo que me refiero, la falta de preparación de suplentes o de maestros. El niño de 7 años en primer grado le enseñó su trabajo a la maestra, a Miss Arellano, que no es maestra, es una suplente que está ahí, y le dice de su trabajo: esto está muy mal, Lucas, esto es una cochinada. Entonces, yo estoy viendo aquí varias cosas, empezando por racismo, aunque el niño es blanco, es hijo de mexicanos. Entonces, pueden haber muchos factores para que no llegue hasta allá la educación que necesitan nuestros niños. Yo apelo a ustedes, que son la voz del Centro de Educación, para que por favor echen un vistazo y se den cuenta, hagan una encuesta, se den cuenta de qué necesidades tiene este lugar, que ahorita tiene deficiencias en todos lados. Y necesitamos urgentemente un coach, porque el coach que tenemos es maltratador, es muy mal coach, aparte que ya tiene una edad muy madura. Entonces, no sé si necesite descansar o necesite algo para poder ser mejor con los niños. Quisiera decir más cosas, pero ya no se puede por el tiempo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Before we have our next speaker, I did want to announce that we do have translation services for anyone who might need them. You can visit with Ms. Liza Rodriguez, and she will get you hooked up with that. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Josefina Lerma.
Buenas tardes, yo soy Josefina Lerma y vengo de Familias Unidas. Pues no sé si decir exigimos más programas en nuestras escuelas para nuestros niños. Y pues maestros que tengan la capacidad para atender a los niños. Tengo una nieta en Guillén y a ella la esfuerzan a quedarse horas de tutoría, pero no tienen bases y pues yo la verdad yo no puedo irla a recoger. Ya van 2 veces que mi hija le manda cartas a la maestra y dice que a fuerza se tiene que quedar en tutoría. Yo le digo a la niña, pues dile que si te trae a la casa te vas a quedar en tutoría. Necesitamos que tengan más vigilancia para los niños en PI, porque los niños andan solitos allí y la verdad que están chicos, los niños necesitan cuidado. A veces se caen y no hay quien los auxilie. El coach que está en la Douglas los dejará solos o no se caen y no se da cuenta el coach y los niños van golpeados a la casa y uno va y habla a la escuela y dicen que ellas no se dan cuenta. Entonces, ¿qué cuidan? Nosotros necesitamos que pues tengan más cuidado con los niños. Van malos y pues no los mandan a la enfermería, no habrá enfermera o no sabemos. Necesitamos más cuidado con los niños, la verdad. Es todo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Yaney Torres, vengo de la escuela Guillén Middle School y también vengo del barrio Chamizal. Yo siento que deberían sacar algunos maestros y poner nuevos. Yo me siento feliz, solo que a veces hay 2 maestros que me quitan las ganas de ir a la escuela. Si hacemos algo mal, nos ponen detención y a veces no sé cuál es la razón. Yo siento que si me ponen detención, yo digo hay que cumplirla, pero Taylor nos pone a limpiar el piso con una toalla y quitar los chicles pegados del piso. Nos grita, nos deja en ridículo con los demás niños, algunos sí se ríen. Hay una muchacha que cuida a los niños especiales y Taylor le grita. Moreno, si no hacemos la tarea, nos pone detención con Taylor. Yo quisiera que ustedes ayudaran a Miss Ruiz. Cuando cambian a las directoras, les afecta a los niños. Gracias.
Gracias. The next speaker is Sandra Carrillo.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Sandra, somos de las Familias Unidas y soy la abuelita de Amy Edith y vengo pues queremos que nos apoyen para que los maestros tengan el mismo trato con todos los niños de su misma, como mi nieta que ha tenido muchos problemas que no la tratan bien y pues eso me duele, ¿verdad? Porque pues son mi nieta y todos son iguales los niños, ¿verdad? Porque pues los tratan diferente. Queremos que pues que los vean por igual y que tengan la misma educación, porque muchas veces los han castigado por cualquier cosa y ellos ni siquiera saben por qué y salen más tarde y uno anda en el bus esperándolas y no nos hablan para decir su nieta se va a quedar y pues ahí ando pidiendo favores con los vecinos porque pues yo no tengo transporte para estarla siguiendo a buscar y está uno con el pendiente de que y luego la dejan por un bar en el bus pasa por un bar, allá hay un bar, que pensamos lo peor, ¿no? Porque pues hay hombres y así, pues de todo hay, pero queremos que las apoyen, a que les den el mismo trato que todos, porque no es justo, ¿verdad? Que no tengan el mismo trato de educación. Gracias, es todo lo que les quería decir para que vean eso. Gracias.
Gracias.
Ay, mi nieta.
Mi nombre es Amy, soy de la Guillén Middle School y vengo del barrio Chamizal. Y siento que deberían de poner más maestros, en especial que pongan un maestro más en ciencias, ya que solo hay un maestro. También quisiera decir algo que pasó en el camión. Unos niños se pelearon y llamaron a la policía de la ciudad y nos quedamos más de 30 minutos esperando a la policía. Y siento que no deberían de dar detención, ya que niños no tienen en qué volver a casa. Gracias por dejarme hablar.
Gracias. The next speaker is María Luisa Amaya.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es María Luisa Maya y yo vengo también de Familias Unidas. Tenemos 7 años luchando por la comunidad. Como ya lo dijeron las compañeras, ¿verdad? Es un barrio bien discriminado por todos, siempre nos dejan al último para todo. Y en este momento yo pienso que es hora de que venga a suplicarles a ustedes que vean por nuestras escuelas, porque es algo bien duro. Primero, injustamente nos cierran escuelas que están trabajando muy bien, que funcionan muy bien. Nos dejan escuelas, como ven, toda la gente se queja, como es Douglas, nos cierran Bell, nos dejan Douglas. Hay muchas ineficiencias en esa escuela, tenemos muchas contradicciones, no nada más con el bus, pero sí tenemos problemas hasta de contaminación que son para los niños, ¿verdad? Tenemos una recicladora de metales enseguida, tenemos la pasada del tren, tenemos calles muy contaminadas y nuestros niños están ahí. Y nosotros, como les digo, tenemos 7 años luchando porque se oigan, no nada más para nuestros hijos, porque pues ya gracias a Dios que los míos ya salieron, estoy con mis nietos, pero ahí seguimos la lucha porque nos interesa el barrio, nos interesa la comunidad, nos interesan los niños, sobre todo porque pienso que debe de ser la prioridad, porque es el futuro. Y ese nivel de discriminación que tenemos ahí es por el motivo que yo vengo a suplicarles a ustedes. No les pido, les suplico que sí hagan algo y que pongan un poquito de atención en todas estas deficiencias que las compañeras han dicho, porque sí necesitamos programas. Es un barrio donde tenemos muchas carencias y nos toman por igual a las de las demás escuelas, de otros barrios que están en un nivel un poquito más alto que nosotros, ¿verdad? Pero bueno, eso no es la idea, sino que nos dieran un buen trato a nuestros hijos, porque creo que lo merecen, porque son el futuro del mañana. Y si nosotros ya terminamos, yo creo que también ustedes tienen hijos y no les gustaría pasar por que sus hijos o sus nietos o sus parientes o su descendencia llegue a pasar por algo de lo que estamos pasando nosotros en el barrio, que es algo bien discriminante, es algo que por más que luchamos, a veces vemos una lucecita ahí allá al fondo, que decimos, ahora sí nos van a ayudar, parece que ahora sí nos oyeron, y sácatelas que nos dan el trancazo y que nos va peor, nos cierran las escuelas, y les suplico por favor su ayuda. Gracias.
Gracias. The next speaker is Cynthia Molinar.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Cintia Molinar y yo soy integrante de Familias Unidas de la Educación. Yo me integré a este grupo porque yo vi que había una gran falta de representación de los padres de las escuelas del barrio Chamizal. Y yo asistí a la escuela Bell, Guillén y Bui. Mi hija también asistió a la escuela Bell y Douglas. Fui una mamá que participó en las funciones que hacía la primaria Bell. Yo lo hacía porque yo estaba interesada que mi hija tuviera las oportunidades que yo no tuve cuando yo asistí a esas escuelas del barrio. En el transcurso de participación dentro de la escuela y la participación del grupo, he visto que hay una gran diferencia de cómo se tratan a nuestros hijos y a los otros estudiantes en otras áreas, que los programas, las oportunidades y las experiencias son diferentes, y eso hace gran diferencia en las vidas de los estudiantes del Chamizal. Nosotros hemos trabajado muy duro para que esto se trate al nivel de distrito. Sin embargo, hemos batallado a que preste una atención más allá de lo regular que nos da. Nuestro esfuerzo siempre ha sido el interés de todos los estudiantes de nuestra comunidad. Nos preocupamos por el bienestar emocional y social de los estudiantes de nuestra comunidad. Estoy aquí para abogar que se usen los recursos que se han otorgado por el presidente Biden para desarrollar un programa que se implementen en todos los planteles, que se trate con incertidumbres presentadas. Hoy por estudiar a la directora actuales que se les ha dado la responsabilidad de no solo tratar con los problemas traídos por la pérdida de la educación, sí igual tratar con las desigualdades traídas por falta de equidad por administraciones pasadas. Gracias.
Gracias. The next speaker is Sherry Ryder.
Good evening, Board President Velarde, board members, and Ms. Saya Vedra. My name is Sherry Ryder. I'm a speech-language pathologist at Charles Q. Murphy Pre-K-8 and Carlos Rivera Elementary. I just want to thank you for terminating Mr. Clay. Our rank and file employees appreciate you all for finally taking care of this. It does make me wonder, though, who else knew? And what are you going to do about the double standard between administrators and the rank and file employees? Can we all now be truly on equal ground? Can you please make it known that sweeping, deceit, etc., under the rug will get you terminated no matter what position you hold? Let's face it, rank and file employees have been terminated for way less, and admin seems to get promoted. It's not right. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ross Moore.
Board President Velarde, board members, Ms. Vedra, my name is Ross Moore, President of El Paso AFT. Well, thank you for doing the right thing, and I hope it was for the right reason, which is to get the system fixed and send a loud, clear, unmistakable message, whoever you are, be you a custodian or be you an executive director, you do wrong, you will be punished, and if you do evil like Mr. Clay did, you will go to jail. Hopefully you guys have given some of the victims at least a little comfort with this decision, and I hope the federal government gives a whole lot more comfort. But we need to fix the system. We need to prevent this, and we need to prevent the circling of wagons around bad administrators. Changing subjects, I presume you know that looking at the 150, 200-page financial report in there, something stood out to me. The amount of debt this district owes. It is huge, and it is long-term. And it is a concern that some of the payments, of course, go through the O&M funds as well as the sinking fund. it's going to, this debt load is going to further cut into the ability of this district to operate, just like the national debt cuts into the federal government's to operate. Canutillo's bond failed, and one of the messages the people that opposed it, even though we did support it, put out was, this district owes too much money. So that's just a thought. You owe a lot of money. I mean, it is kind of unnerving, and it really stood out. Last thing is on board elections. I completely agree with my counterpart from EPTA that it needs to be a leave the seat empty and appoint it. The last time you guys did an appointment, yeah, there was supposedly a process, but that got us Mickey Lowry. And what did you win by, Trustee Call, when after that debacle? Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Javier Miranda.
Good evening, Board. Superintendent Saavedra. First of all, I'm in full support of the Familias Unidas del Chamizal. I've been trying to get the buoy for the last 8 years, but various circumstances have prevented these things from happening. But I would ask that you support their efforts in addressing their concerns. I'm here to address the termination of teachers on the west side, primarily at Franklin High School. English teacher, of where I am, I'm a social studies teacher, and I also have a colleague over at Ornedo Middle School that's also been terminated, and there is question about whether due process has been extended these individuals, and we fear that most of us are on the, we're next, and so we wish for folks to adhere to what's some policies that have been proposed by EPTA. Norma de la Rosa is going to be addressing the issues of a phone policy that's been crafted at the state level in order for us to be protected. When we teach in these times of critical race theory assertions or voter suppression, which are both on equal level here, when we teach, say, for example, the Indian Removal Act, Jackson tried to put, or the second Bill of Rights from Roosevelt, or when we have Jefferson saying that he wants to recolonize folks that are recently, or were recently removed from slavery, that's the truth. That's history. And we're being condemned by various right-wing groups that seek to dismantle public education, whether it's through vouchers, charter schools, and now coming after us as teachers, educators. I'm sorry, sir, I'm kind of distracted by your smile. I don't find this to be very funny. But I would ask that you please be very perhaps a collaboration between administrators and teachers so we can see what the process is for us to be disciplined and the due process that's going to be extended to us, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the last speaker for public comment is Norma de la Rosa.
Good evening, Mr. Velarde, members of the board, Ms. Saavedra. I'm Norma de la Rosa, president of El Paso Teachers Association. 2 meetings ago, I addressed this board about not double standards, but triple standards that exist in this district. A set of standards for administrators, as was evidenced by what recently happened with a former administrator in this district who continued to work for the district and who moved up in central office positions. A set of standards for students who choose not to follow the rules, district policy, and state law. Between them and parents, they act like they are entitled and do not need to follow the rules. And then there is a set of standards for teachers that don't allow for any latitude for mistakes or are set up for by students to be terminated, which segues into my topic for tonight, and that is this. the blatant disregard of the district, campus administrators, and students in following state law, district policy, and the student code of conduct related to cell phones in the classroom. Texas Education Code Section 37.082 states very clearly that the board may adopt a policy prohibiting a student from possessing a paging device, which includes cell phones, while on school property, and imposing disciplinary measures, which you have done. EPISD policy FNCE local further delineates that a district employee may confiscate a personal electronic device, including a mobile phone. It goes further that guidelines regarding the use of electronic devices shall be addressed in the student handbook. But here is the most interesting. It states, a student shall obtain prior approval before using personal telecommunications or other personal electronic devices for on-campus instructional purposes. The student shall also acknowledge receipt and understanding of applicable regulations and shall sign the appropriate user agreements. Let's go one step further. The Student Code of Conduct Handbook states that students are not to use cellular phones and/or electronic devices, accessories in the building unless it is being used in the classroom for instructional purposes. But this last statement pretty well sums it up. Students shall not distribute pictures or video of students or staff without their permission. Distribution can be as small as emailing, texting to another person, or as large as posting images or videos online. The rules and the law are very clear, and in light of what has happened to 2 teachers who were videotaped, posted on social media, a violation of the no cell phone policy and no permission given, yet these teachers have suffered the consequences of losing their livelihood and their reputations ruined. But consequences for the students? None. Absolutely nothing. Law and policy are in place for a reason. With no laws or policy in place, chaos reigns, and that is what is in place now in our classrooms. Chaos, and our teachers have had enough and are done. They are, and we are demanding that state law and district policy be enforced now. No exceptions. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment.
Thank you. So at this time, we're going to go to items on number 6. Number 6A, discuss and take appropriate action on annual comprehensive financial report with independent auditors report thereon for 2021-2022 fiscal year.
Thank you, President Velarde and trustees. I'd like to invite Marta Aguirre to the podium along with Maria Pineda and our external auditors to share their findings of the latest audit done, comprehensive financial report of our district finances.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Velarde, trustees, Superintendent Saavedra, Marta Aguirre, Chief Financial Officer. And as you stated, pursuant to Texas Education Code, the district is required to conduct an annual evaluation of our financials through a licensed accounting firm. I apologize. And the firm that we used for this fiscal year, this past fiscal year, which was 21-22, was Gibson, Ruddock, and Patterson. And so Mr. Craig Gibson is here to present on the audit.
So now for something really exciting, the auditor. Okay. I'd like to go over these graphs that really sum up the annual report really well, I think. Maybe. I'll go ahead and start. Oh, there we go. This first graph's comparison of the district-wide revenue. And you'll see a sizable increase this year, which I'll tell you from the onset here, gosh, it's a little loud. I am very pleased with this financial statement this year, and you'll see why. The revenue's up. Now, the state revenue, which is the blue section, is down a little bit. and that is in relation to our ADA. Okay, we did have a little decrease there. But the yellow section is the federal revenue, and that is a huge increase. It's primarily the ERISA funding, which was a huge shot in the arm for not just this district, but for all of the districts. And it really came when we needed the additional boost. The local revenue is up a little bit, and the bulk of it is property tax. There was a little over 1% increase in value and about 2.5% increase in the overall rate. So we were very pleased to see that. The graph that's up there right now is a percentage view of it, and it just expresses how the state went down, the federal went up. This graph is a comparison of the expenditures, and I know y'all have already had a long night, so I'm going to try and be brief, but if you have a question, just pipe up. The blue section represents the instruction expenditures, functions 11, 12, and 13. You see a little bit of a decrease here. That primarily relates to the fact that last year we had a significant amount of expenditures related to remote learning that we did not have to repeat this year. So we had a little bit of savings there. The yellow is campus administration, functions 21, 23, just a slight decrease. The red is our student support. That's the functions 31 through 36. And we see a little bit of an increase here, which is primarily transportation. The year before, we didn't have a lot of buses running, and this year we did. When I say this year, I mean this past year. And we also had more expenditures in the extracurricular because we had students back on campus. The little sliver of pink there is the administration, just a slight decrease. And then the green is the 50s, 51, 52, and 53, which is facilities, security, data processing. And we saw just a little bit of decrease there, and that actually related to doing a direct charge to the child nutrition for their custodial and utilities instead of using the indirect cost. This is our little dollar bill, so you can see how many pennies out of every dollar went to those various categories. You can see we're still at 3 cents for administration. This is a comparison of the per student expenditures in the general fund. So the blue bar, we take total expenditures, divide it by ADA, and come up with this. And so you can see we had a slight decrease because we did have a decrease in expenditures overall. But also a slight decrease in federal or state funding. That's the red line. And the state was able to offset some of their funding with the federal monies that we got. But what this shows is below that red line is funded by the state, and the amount above the red line is funded locally. Now this is the graph that I've been waiting for here. The fund balance. Those of you that have been with us for the last few years, you know that we've been talking about that fund balance going down. The number across the bottom is what we refer to as the days of expenditure. The way to look at this is if all of our revenue got cut off, this is how many days we could continue to operate at the same level. The sweet spot that we look for is 90 days. And this year, it's bumped up to 89 days. So we are really excited about this. You know, we're accountants, we like numbers. So, but this really shows a much healthier financial situation. The administrative cost ratio is always a concern, and it is a measurement that TEA looks at. So we've graphed this out, and it's not 100% the way TEA calculates it, but it's probably 99%. The blue bar represents the administrative costs, and the formula we use is down there in the right corner. And the red line represents the ratio. The maximum is the 8.5% allowed by TEA, and we're below 6%. And I know for the past several years, EPISD has had the lowest rate in the area. So anxious to see how the other districts do as well. This is the ADA, which we mentioned earlier. This has a direct impact on the state funding, and there was about a 2.5% decrease. Now, this is the last graph, but it shows a really good picture. The last couple of years, we've been talking about the health insurance fund. And as you can see, the blue bar is almost equal to the yellow. That means we had just a very small loss in the operation of this fund this year. So I think we're definitely on the right track. The rate has been modified to cover our expenditures. The red line at the bottom is the equity in this fund. And as you'll recall, last year we had a huge deficit, and there was a $15 million infusion from the general fund that bumped that up. So, and in talking with management, I believe they're expecting a significantly smaller infusion will be required this year. So we're very pleased. The audit itself, we issued an unmodified report or a clean opinion. There are no findings, and I know that Martha and Maria are very pleased with that. We do have some suggestions for improvement that are in that management letter that y'all get, and we're really pleased that management has already taken action on many of those. So if you have any questions, I'll turn it over to Haley and Marlene, who actually did all the work.
Dr. Acevedo?
I just have a general question on the scope of this. How do you determine what scope to do? Is it, I guess, it feels like every year that we get the scope, I haven't really seen it change. It's the same things. And I wonder if there are lessons learned from prior years that could say, okay, in the next year, we're going to audit this area a little bit more to get other findings and bring constructive stuff to the Marta's team or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, actually, we are governed by the Single Audit Act first, and also just by general auditing standards with the American Institute of CPAs. So there are certain minimum requirements that we have to do every year. But we, on the federal programs, we look at different ones every year. There's a rotation, and actually it is defined how you select the federal programs that you are going to test each year. So we have to go through a ranking system. So we do look at different federal programs each year, and we also concentrate more on different departments each year. So we try to do a cyclical approach. But the main point of the audit is to issue an opinion on the financial statement itself, the numbers. And so that is the main thrust. But we do test a considerable amount of compliance issues as well. So yeah, it is not, there is some things that are the same every year, definitely. And the financial statement itself is the key thing, but we rotate on a cyclical basis the different areas. So yes.
Are there any other questions?
I do have
Ms. Leah?
My biggest question was the weighted attendance daily average to all staff ratio. Do you know what that number is? I think it's around 86. Is it around 86?
The attendance ratio?
Yes, the attendance to all staff ratio. So the percentage of staff versus the budget. That's okay. I can ask for it later.
Dan?
Just wanted to say thank you for your hard work. It always makes me feel better as a trustee knowing that we have a good external audit team as well as our internal auditor to, make sure everything is straight and narrow. So well done. Shout out to Haley. Great job, guys.
Thank you. And you do have a good internal auditor, by the way. Myra and her team does a great job.
Yeah, she's all right.
As you
Okay.
know.
She's good. Any other,
I just noticed that the same issues that were brought to our attention by our internal auditor were also identified in this audit. So if those are areas that we need to improve on to make our particularly our curriculum more efficient and using those grant monies as well as the observations of the attendance. So if those could be corrected, I think we'll even be in better shape. But if anything, thank you for all that you've done.
If I may have this opportunity, I also wanted to share that as we've lived through this, there's a 5 to 6 month period of audit. And in that extensive audit process, there are many departments that are required to support the documentation and reporting. And then more importantly, I also want to recognize the financial services department because they are the ones that collaborate and put all the information together. It is quite a task, and I do want to thank everybody that supports in this reporting to the state.
thank you so much. And there being no other questions, I do also want to thank you, Mr. Gibson and your team, and of course the finance staff. We go through this at my business. We don't have as many zeros on our books as you guys have, but I know for the next 2 months, I can't walk into my CFO's office without getting screamed at. So I understand the stress that you all go through and the challenges. But the most remarkable thing, obviously, is the great financials, but the fact that there aren't any findings, and it's a very clean audit. That really is something that's very important. And for board members, that's a good thing. And so thank you all. Great team effort. At this time, I will call for a motion. Is there anybody who would like to make a motion?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ibali?
I move that the board approve the comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year 2021-2022 with the independent auditor's report thereon as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hanani, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
You too. Okay, we are now going to go to item 6B. Discuss and take appropriate action on adoption of board mission and vision statements and district core beliefs. We do have a speaker, so before we, do we have anybody who's going to discuss this, Ms. Saavedra?
Me?
Okay, Ms. Saavedra, go ahead and share the conversation, then we do have speaker, and then we'll go to vote.
Thank you, President Velarde, trustees, and community. Prior to presenting the mission, the vision, and the core beliefs that we've been working on collectively as a team of 8 for a number of months, we've also gone out to the community to share drafts and gotten feedback from the community. Our hope after this process and the adoption of this phase 1 of the directional documents is that we will present you with the rest of the strategic framework as we continue to work on that in December for your adoption. But prior to you considering that, I would like to, share some insights and some information with you all as you consider adopting and finalizing our direction going forward. This year in El Paso ISD, we've adopted a mantra that we abide by in this district, and that mantra is that it starts with us. We've talked to the community on a number of occasions and expressed that we are the pioneers of education in the El Paso region. We have demonstrated a history of advancing and advocating for students, giving educators the tools they need to inspire and empower responsible citizens who are prepared to thrive in diverse future opportunities. All of this started with us. With those high standards come lofty expectations. We welcome that. Accountability starts with us too. As an organization, we are obligated to account for our activities, accept responsibility for them, and disclose results in a transparent manner. We meet in this boardroom every month to be accountable to our community. Tonight, we are doing so again. As leaders, we value accountability, and we want our community to share this same sentiment. Everyone in this room, leaders, teachers, staff, community members, are accountable for their performance and behavior. When we all practice it, trust is solidified, integrity is founded, teamwork prospers, and open communication develops. I've heard a lot of good feedback this evening from a number of different people who have addressed the board and myself as the superintendent. But I would like to comment on a leadership mentor that I value. Her name is Brene Brown, and she's a renowned researcher and professor of social work at the University of Houston. She says, shaming and blaming without accountability is toxic to organizations, communities, and families. Setting boundaries and holding people accountable is a lot more work than shaming and blaming, but it's also much more effective. A future that realizes the hopes and dreams of this community is attainable. But if we are going to be true to that vision, we must come together and lift each other up to truly inspire and empower our students to thrive. El Paso ISD leaders are up for the challenge and will consistently make decisions that are student-driven and student-focused. We are El Paso's district, and it starts with us. Thank you. And I encourage you to consider our mission, our vision, the core beliefs, and the values that we've set forth in the work that we've done as a board.
Thank you, Ms. Saavedra. I didn't see them come up on the board. We didn't have them available so that they could be seen.
Can you project those for us, please? Thank you.
While we're putting up, I'll just, my comments are, I think, I echo what Ms. Saavedra is saying. Being a tenured board member on this board, I recognize that in the past we had some weaknesses. But you'll never hear me criticize the EPISD of the past. I will always learn from those weaknesses and move forward to improve upon them, but I'll also look at our strengths and work hard to make us even stronger in those areas. And then maybe we identify a few new things that maybe we can implement and turn this district into the dynamic district that I know that we can do. And I know that under Ms. Saavedra's leadership, we're well on our way to doing all of that. And I think what we've got here, a couple of important points. I know some of our visitors aren't here, but that were here earlier, but I definitely want to point out that as a core belief, and you see it right here, we're putting equity in there. This is a core belief. We believe in that, and we want to make sure that we strive to achieve the fact that this school is equitable to all of our students, to make sure that all kids have a fair opportunity. But I just want you all to be able to take a look at this mission, at this vision. There was a lot of work behind it, and I thank Ms. Saavedra for her leadership in making it happen. And I do believe in a very bright, positive future, but it starts with what we put down in writing and what we commit to as an organization in order to make us better than what we were in the past. We do have a speaker?
We don't anymore.
Okay, our speaker is gone. Do we have any comments or questions from board members? I do not. At this point, I will go ahead and entertain a motion.
I move that the board adopt the mission and vision statements as well as the core beliefs for the district as presented.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, board. Okay, we're going to go to item 6C. Discuss and take appropriate action on vacancy in trustee District 6. Ms. Saavedra, who will be leading this conversation?
Ms. Sezzy Collins will present the board with information associated with options for the board to consider. As you are aware, we did have our trustee representing District 6 who resigned recently. And so, Ms. Collins, can you share with the board so that they may discuss what their options are going forward, leading up to the official board elections in May?
Yes, good evening, trustees. I just wanted to let you know that the resignation that we received from trustee Kyle Avalos became effective by operation of law. That also indicates, though, or means that he remains as a holdover trustee until the position is either filled by appointment or election. We are outside of the window of time to actually do an election. When we received the resignation of trustee Kyle Avalos, which means that the next election wouldn't be until the actual, the election that's set for May of 2023. That would be the normal election course for that particular seat. The board could appoint, and many boards do. This board, not this particular board, but the EPISD board in the past did have vacancies in the past. One in particular that I recall was filled by appointment. There's many ways that you can do that. It could be by application. It could be taking the next highest vote getter, or basically a nomination from the dais. Whatever method that you would choose, if you chose to fill the vacancy, you would want to make sure that the process is very transparent, that it's open to the public, and that people in that particular district could apply if they wanted to, or be considered.
Okay. Do we have questions from board members at this time? Okay, before I continue with questions, we do have a speaker, so.
The first speaker on this item is Jacqueline Ann Martinez.
Good evening, distinguished Board of Trustees and Superintendent Diana Saavedra. My name is Jacqueline Martinez, and I am a 13-year veteran teacher, born and raised in El Paso, and a graduate of Franklin High School. Go Cougars. I am not a teacher in EPISD, and up until 2020, I taught for over a decade in Dallas, Texas, a year in China, and a summer in Uganda, Africa. I relocated back to my hometown during the pandemic when school districts across the nation were grappling with how to continue serving students amidst a global crisis. Despite the flood of concerned parents and school employees who begged my former school district's leaders to keep classes virtual, teachers were forced to return to brick and mortar. This was during a time when there was not yet a vaccine to protect us from COVID, and mask mandates were heavily resisted. As someone who is high risk, I decided to temporarily resign from teaching. I returned to the classroom in August of 2021 and have had the good fortune of finding a supportive administration where I am treated like the professional that I am. Unfortunately, this is an anomaly and not the norm within the teaching profession in schools across our city, state, and nation. There is a national teacher deficit due to teachers being overworked, underpaid, and a lack of support. These challenges existed pre-COVID, and the pandemic only exacerbated them, which in turn has resulted in a mass exodus of educators and other school employees. I applaud the fact that at least one of the school board trustees is a practicing classroom teacher, and I'd like to continue building on this and normalize teacher representation at the decision-making table. Teacher voices are often overlooked or straight up shut down. When school boards are tasked with guiding administration as well as setting policy around school issues, teachers have firsthand experience working within the system itself, which can inform those conversations and decisions that ultimately affect students and teachers. I would like to use the remainder of my time to stand in solidarity with concerned teachers in District 6. The recent terminations that have resulted from unenforced state law and district policy is extremely problematic. I understand and respect that parents have rights in their child's education. I support that. My question is, what is the district doing to equip teachers to navigate or manage these topics and conversations? I leave you with this. The wise build bridges while the foolish build barriers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers?
Yes, one more speaker. Okay. I believe Ms. Norma de la Rosa. Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Velarde, members of the board, Ms. Saavedra. I am Norma de la Rosa, president of El Paso Teachers Association. When news broke announcing the resignation of Trustee Freddie Clial Avalos, I reached out to you and asked you to consider not filling this vacancy and allowing the election process to fill that seat, considering the time frame that this process would take and knowing that person would have no real effect on the district or the students. Upon seeing this item on the agenda this evening, I am coming back to you and asking that you seriously consider this item and determine what really will be the advantage of filling this position now at this stage of the game, considering that filing for this position opens in January and the election is scheduled for May of 2023. I want to remind you who were on the board the last time a vacancy occurred and inform those of you who are not on the board and that vacancy was filled. Do you want to have another fiasco, such as was seen when Mickey Lowry was appointed to the board? The other major concern is who wants to fill this position. I would hope that organizations such as CREED are not dictating as to who should fill this seat, or the very thought that someone fills this position only for the sole reason of moving a personal agenda, an agenda that has nothing to do with the real purpose and reason for serving on a school board, to provide the best education for all students and hire and retain the best teachers and staff. I urge you to vote against filling this vacancy tonight or any other board meeting night and let the election process take its course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. De La Rosa. Okay, before we go to avoid, and I'll allow everybody to have a comment if you wish. I'm just going to say, it's my opinion that we're not bound by the law under this particular circumstances to either appoint or do a special election. And Ms. Collins, you said we can't even do the special election anymore. I think
That's correct.
Thank you. It is my opinion that when it comes to this type of matter, the voice of the community is the voice that needs to be heard. And I truly believe that the time that it would take to even do an appointment, if that were to be the decision of this board, we'd be well probably into February before we're at a point to make an announcement based on the experience from the past of making an appointment. The process, in order for it to be completely transparent, in order for it to be a whole process, we got to give it the time that it needs so that we can hear from the community to make sure that the community some way, somehow has a voice in this matter. And that's just going to simply put it into a February period. My opinion, you'll already have candidates running for this office for a May election beginning in January. So it just does not make sense to me to dedicate the time or to even spend money to appoint somebody who, again, without being specific, my opinion would be February before we get somebody seated. And depending when on February, they may be able to be a part of 1 or 2 board meetings before an election takes place. So it is my opinion that it's just not wise to appoint at this point. It is my opinion that it is the voice of the Franklin community that needs to be heard and who needs to decide who their next representative is going to be. So I share that with the board. If anybody else would like to have a comment or state their position, please feel free before I call for a motion. Mr. Urbali.
Whereas I greatly respect that opinion, and seeing as you went through that process and everything, I kind of want to echo what Ms. Saavedra shared in her previous item when we discussed the mission, the value, and the core beliefs. Part of that conversation was that we were not going to look at the ills of the past to dictate the future of which EPISD moves forward. And what I see here is the largest district in EPISD with the largest school in not only EPISD, but El Paso County is going to be without representation for several months coming. And we'll understand there's trepidation and caution that must be taken. I, for one, know my community, if I was not elected, if I resigned, would want that seat filled if it was for a month or if it was for 6 months or if it was for a year. Because that voice, something that we've learned, especially with Trustee Clio not being in these meetings, that voice from Franklin's not here. That advocacy, unless someone comes from the public's not here. And I do think that that's a missed opportunity, and we talked about it tonight about equity, right? Having that voice for the entire community. In many cases, that voice isn't being heard. So I am actually of the opposite opinion of we should move into steps of finding a replacement, finding someone that will advocate for that community. One that, for some reason, I believe the community believes is an agenda being forced down from outside organizations where each of us took the oath to look at what's happening in EPISD, helping our students and making sure we're taking the district in the right and positive direction. So whereas I respect definitely what you went through, President Velarde, and I see your opinion. I just believe that it's too important at this time when we're developing our foundational documents for that district not to have a voice and be a part of the training exercises that we're having to develop our goals, our strategic plan, and everything else is going to be used to build this district forward.
Thank you, Mr. Urbali. Does anybody else want to have a comment on this? Mr. Cole.
I think there's a lot of good points that have been made by Trustee Urbali and Trustee Velarde. I'm of the opinion that the easiest thing to do here is just to let the people decide in a vote. That's right around the corner, and I think the people often make, the voters, I should say, to be more specific, often make the best decisions on who they want representing them. So that's my opinion.
Thanks, sir. Are there any other?
I do have a quick comment.
Ms. Hanani?
I do think also that the timing, as you know, if this goes into February, the deadline to apply for the election would be in February. So I agree there's going to be an overlap in terms of timing. What I would ask is if this board does decide not to appoint, I would ask the district finds a way to, or the board finds a way to ensure that that community, specifically the Franklin feeder pattern, has some recourse to make sure that their voices are heard, whether that's possibly having an avenue to go through the officers, to go to the president or vice president. I mean, I'm happy to, field concerns from the community, but I do think that we should find a way in the interim to have a space for them to make sure that they feel that their addresses are concerned if we do decide not to appoint.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I just wanted to say, I just think very similar to what's being said is, I think the timing is unfortunate, and I remember when I ran a few years ago, one of the things I said right when I got elected is that this seat didn't have representation for 7 months, and at the time, I think there was a very different administration in place where I probably wouldn't trust them to add that representation for the months that are left. But I think the administration that we have in place now will do the due diligence to be there for the Franklin community on the west side to just give them that holdover, be that bridge from now until someone is elected in the summer. So I'm also happy, like Trustee Hanani said, I'm happy to lend a hand if needed to be out there, hear those concerns. I mean, our email's there if we need to have a meeting or something along those lines, happy to be there. So I share that sentiment.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other?
Yes,
Ms.
I
Hernandez?
agree that it is an unfortunate timing, and I'm okay with us moving on, although it'll leave a big gap, as long as the citizens know that they have a way of voicing their opinions, whether it's here at our board meetings or through us.
Thank you. And I would say, let it be clear that there are 6 board members on this, and while I understand that we are elected by our districts, each and every one of us have complete interest in the entire district as a whole, and I do believe that any one of us, if there's an issue that needs to be addressed, any one of us, if not all of us, will go and represent that district as fairly and as best as we possibly can in these few months that we're going to have. So at this time, if there are no other conversations or statements, I'm ready to move for a motion. So do we have somebody who wants to make a motion on this? It's item 6C.
I can make a motion.
I'm sorry?
I can make a motion.
Okay, Dr. Acevedo?
I'm just winging it, says he, so tell me if you want me to answer some words, but.
Go right ahead.
I move that the EPISD Board of Trustees leave this seat vacant until it is filled by the May 2023 election. Is that okay?
That's very good.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have a second, Mr. Call? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Okay, now we are going to go to item 6D. Discuss and take appropriate action on approval of district improvement plan and campus improvement plan performance objectives. Ms. Saavedra? Oh, we do have a speaker on this one, but we'll have the speaker after our conversation.
Thank you, President Velarde and trustees. The administration has been hard at work to bring forth our district improvement plan performance objectives and our campus improvement plan performance objectives. It's been a bit challenging over the last few months as we have worked in parallel with the work that the district's doing in setting the direction or the new direction for the school district and making sure that there's a semblance of alignment between the work that the staff is doing and what the board's desires are. So I'm going to hand it over to Maribel Marcias, our Chief Organizational Transformation Equity Officer, to kick us off, followed by our Executive Director, Christine Ferret.
President Velarde, Superintendent Saavedra, members of the board, as an extension to your continued work in developing our district's mission, vision, core beliefs, and strategic levers, our departments and campuses have been strategically updating their dips and sips to ensure there is purposeful alignment from the boardroom to the classroom. Today, up for your consideration are district and campus performance objectives. As we mentioned last month, this is a work in progress, and as such, we will continue to share our progress as we move forward. Next month in December, we will share with the board draft metrics for your review. We are currently revising, hardening our soft metrics that need to be articulated with quantifiable targets. In addition, in January and February, we will follow up with our first formative review. At this time, I will pass it over to Ms. Ferret, who we were going to continue to share our planning process, continued transition and alignment, and of course, for your approval, our DIP and SIP performance objectives.
Thank you. Good evening, board. In today's presentation, we'll just do a brief flashback and overview of the process and timeline, a summary of the district performance objectives and campus performance objectives, as well as a brief introduction to the transition. As shared with you last month, our performance objectives and the approval of the board is part of our BQ decision-making policy series, the legal and local, that defines that the board shall annually approve district and campus performance objectives and ensure that the plans are mutually supportive and support the state goals and objectives. Our long-term planning process, again, builds down from the mission, vision, our board goals, our core beliefs, into a district strategic plan, and then the district improvement plan, which is the one-year plan. And from those documents, we build on our strategic investments with the department and campus improvement plans. This year, as you know, we are working in tandem, and many of these things are happening parallel with adjustments and strategic alignment being made throughout the fall. As shared with you last year, the process began in February of 2022, and as was shared from the last board meeting at the district improvement plan, we had 2 meetings with DIAC as well as a meeting with our campus principals and department leaders to continue strategic alignment with some of the early direction we were receiving from the board. And today we are at the November 15th board approval with continued transition and strategic alignment. Same with the campus improvement plans. And now as we go into the performance objectives, at the district level, they're coordinated by themes. And so the first theme, aligning with whole child, you can see the areas of focus, and the areas of focus were shared at the last board meeting based on our needs assessment and their specific performance objectives listed for you. You'll see in parentheses a number that aligns to where those performance objectives are currently housed in our software that holds our district improvement plan, Plan for Learning. In our second theme, academic excellence, you'll see our areas of focus, again, aligning, and our performance objectives. In the area of academic excellence, you'll also see several of the performance objectives are specific to House Bill 3, and those metrics would align to the House Bill 3 board goals. Our third set of performance objectives align to the theme of destination district, and our fourth sense to the theme of culture of transparency. Provided for you was a flash drive that shares the campus performance objectives. And you have an additional summary that includes some of the key components of the district improvement plan and the strategic alignment in those themes with the campus improvement plans. And our campus principals went back to their campus improvement teams and looked at those areas and ensured that if they were not already represented, additional work was done for that strategic alignment. After this meeting and the approval of the performance objectives, just sharing with you, these are live, vibrant plans that will continue to evolve and grow with the district direction. We'll continue alignment all the way through February. We will be translating and posting our campus improvement plans and district improvement plans as required. We will have formative reviews. The formative reviews initially were November, but we will continue to work through that strategic alignment so that that will be more of a December, and we will bring back to you in January the results of those the first formative reviews. And then we're also very excited right now to, as we build from our strategic district documents, to begin the work for our 23-24 plan, including the district strategic plan and district improvement plan framework with the alignment, the district department plans, and really building the district strategic investments and alignment of budget, all aligned to those documents. At this point, I'll pause. We do have our assistant soups who've reviewed our campus improvement plan performance objectives and ourselves that can answer any questions.
Board members.
I don't
Ms.
have a,
Isabel?
yes, sir. I don't have a question, but I wanted to say that I looked at a school that wasn't rated last year, and it looked like their goals were a bit lofty, and I just want to make sure that they have what they have or what they don't have in place, that whatever they need, we can get them to those required, or if not required, then those goals that they're shooting for, because they were in the double digits, like 20, 30, even 40% of improvement. And that, to me, I thought, wow, I know that they're wanting to do well, but I just want to make sure that they have all that they need to make that happen.
And thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that with us, Ms. Hernandez. I will share with you that after this particular agenda item, we will also be sharing specific targeted improvement plans for the campuses, one of those campuses that is still not rated. So our assistant superintendents and our Department of School Leadership can certainly answer any more specific questions. But that targeted improvement plan is specific with a lot of support from not only the Department of School Leadership, but the academic team as well.
Any other questions? Okay, we're on a pause. Do you have more to report here?
No, we would just like a recommendation for your approval at this time.
Okay. So there being no other questions, do I have an approval to approve item 6D?
Yes, I move the board approve the 2022-23 district and campus performance objectives supporting a transition plan to continuing to align to board-approved goals and strategic plan as developed.
And,
We
and
do have
before
a
I take a vote, I know we had a
Speaker.
public comment, so I'm sorry. Okay, so we have a motion.
Yes. Mr. Rossmore is the speaker on this item.
Board members, Ms. Saavedra, my name's still Ross Moore. I'm still the president of the El Paso AFT, and I know y'all are getting tired of seeing me. I'll make this very quick. One, I have a concern. For 10 years, this district's been using Mr. Clay's data. Has anybody gone and planned based on that? Has anybody gone back and done a spot check or more thorough revalidation of the data that you're planning on? The second is I've got concerns because I'm getting reports from members that the CIT elections that are required by law are not occurring on all campuses, and that in at least 3, the campus principal just gave them a list of names and said, here they are. Or here's the candidates, vote for them, even though there was no real process there. That's a year-to-year problem. That's nothing new. And the last one that I ask that principals are reminded and assistant soups are very keen to is there's a tendency to take shortcuts, keep it between the guardrails of policy and law, things like duty-free lunch or 8-hour workday or working on weekends or paperwork reduction. That's all I ask on this. Thank you very much. That was quick, wasn't it?
Thank you.
Do we have another?
That's
That'll be it.
There's,
Okay.
there's another one for 6E, though.
Okay. All right, so at this point, we do have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. We will now move to item 6E. Discuss and take appropriate action on approval of 2022-2023 targeted improvement plans for identified campuses, Career Technology, College Career Technology Academy, Canyon Hills Middle School, Guillen Middle School, and Hart Elementary School.
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Velarde and trustees. Based on the accountability rules of the state, we are required to submit targeted improvement plans for campuses who meet particular criteria. In this particular case, the campuses that were listed, 3 of those campuses have come out of what we would call A through F accountability jail, but we're still required to submit 1 more year's worth of improvement plans for those campuses. There is one campus on that list that still has some progress to make, so that we'll continue to support that campus. And we do have our Department of School Leadership here under the direction of Dr. Carla Gonzalez to share information specific to those plans.
Good evening, Board President Velarde, board members, and Superintendent Saavedra. My name is Blanca Garcia. I'm an Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Schools, and I'm here this evening with Mr. Mark Paz, who's the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Schools, and we're here to recommend the approval of the TIP plans for identified campuses, Canyon Hills, Guillen, CCTA, and Hart. As a department, and we also have with us here the Title I coordinators that support the campuses that are on the TIP. We have Ms. Monica Chavez, Lisa Lyons, and Patty Benitez. As a department, we are leading and supporting the Effective School Framework, TA Effective School Framework, the continuous process for the identified campuses. The framework is a process that has been adopted by TEA as part of their 5-year strategic plan, and it serves as a guide for the campuses that need to develop a TIP plan. The Targeted Improvement Plan is a structured system and plan that is divided into cycles and is focused on areas that have been identified for the 4 campuses through a diagnostic assessment that took place in February. It is that information that we use, the diagnostic assessment, so that we could develop the TIP plan. There are 5 levers under the Effective School Framework, and I'm going ahead here, but okay. And the 5 levers, and I do apologize, the first lever I know indicates that it's lever 7, but this is directly from TA, so that has been noted and communicated. But the first lever that is used by many of our campuses on a TIP is the strong school leadership and planning. Research has indicated that when you have a strong leadership team that is trained and supported, that they are able to implement and develop a plan that will lead to student success for everyone. Lever 2 is effective, well-supported teachers. One of our goals is to ensure that our teachers have all the resources and tools that they need to include training, and make sure that principals are able to also recruit and support high-quality teachers and continue that support to build their capacity. Level 3 is a positive school culture. One of the focus that we need to ensure that our campuses are safe and that our students feel safe and comfortable so that learning can take place. And then, of course, the high quality curriculum, which is the focus of the district. We want to ensure that all the campuses on the TIP are following the Tier 1 components to ensure that quality teaching is taking place. They're also participating in a LAFA training through Region 19 that takes them through the full cycle of lesson alignment all the way into formative assessment. And this is Guillen and Hart are participating in that at this time. And then, of course, effective instruction. We want to make sure that all our students are exposed to rigorous lessons and quality instruction. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Paso, who will take you through the essential actions identified by the 4 campuses when it comes to the essential actions that need to take place to continue the growth at these campuses and to ensure that we move our campuses forward.
Good evening. On this slide, you'll look at the essential actions that were based on the diagnostic that was done in February of last year. That diagnostic is done with Region 19's guidance, and we meet with TEA and the campus administration and leadership teams to determine if the essential actions meet those diagnostic needs. So they're basically presented to the campuses from the region and say these best support the needs of the campus. We review them and just as a collective group with TA's guidance, look to move forward on those essential action items. If you look at the 4 campuses, I'll go looking at Hart Elementary School. They've decided to focus on lever 1.1, which is leadership, 4.1 with high quality instruction and resources, and 5.3, which is going to be our routines and rituals. So those are the areas that campus is going to focus on. Canyon Hills also 1.1, effective leadership, 5.1, which is going to be our data-driven instruction, and 5.3 as well. Guillen Middle School, same 1.1, 4.1, looking at resources and materials of effective instruction, and 5.1. And then College Career and Technology, also 1.1, 4.1, and 5.1. Again, that is a collaboration between the region, their direction, TEA's approval, of looking at that diagnostic and the campus administration to best utilize those levers. These are what we're actually asking for approval for tonight. We've have a successful timeline that we rolled out in correlation with Region 19 and TEA and the campuses, and that is to review the tips in August. We take what we've done the previous year, look at are they moving the needle forward, looking at the artifacts that concluded the year, and determine if those are appropriate steps moving forward with the collaboration of the three entities. You look at the DCSI, which is myself and Dr. Garcia, that will initiate the plan, making sure that it is successful. We utilize the team and the resources we have available to meet with the campuses in September to determine those steps. We provide additional training. We go through Region 19 to do a refresher training so that new members of the committee, new administrators, understand the levers and the work that has to get done at that campus level. This month in November, we are looking at we're coming to you for approval. We've already held public meetings with the campuses, either with copy with the principals, parent nights at our first student conferences. We were able to share with the public and the parents the actions that will be taken at the campus to get their insight and input and utilize that as some of the information that we're sharing with TEA. And then meeting with the campus leadership team, the school support staff and instructional resources available to provide those resources, continuously provide feedback to TEA and get information from them. We've already met with TEA and they are in alignment with what we're proposing and know that the artifacts that we turn in throughout the year will be consistent with that instruction coming from them. And then you'll see the timelines moving forward in December, March, April, and May.
Okay, do we have any questions from any of our board members? Ms. Hanani.
I ask this question every year. Well, I guess this is the second time, but I've asked it multiple times. Why isn't Lever 2 recommended by the region, do you think? Is it a funding issue in terms of incentivizing teachers at the lowest performing schools? Is that basically why they're suggesting the Lever 1 instead of Lever 2?
I think Lever 2 is a different opportunity for campuses to select their individuals 100% of the time. So because many times the district has total authority over the hiring of many individuals, it is hard at times for the campus to own that exclusively. So I believe TA does tend to shy away from that lever. There could be a staffing issue where we have to place somebody from another campus because of cuts and movement, and sometimes the campus receives an individual that they didn't hire. So we always want to make the best with the individuals we receive at our campus, but many times it is out of the control of the campus administration. So that does tend to be one they shy away.
Okay.
I would say that as we think about that particular lever as a district, that's also a culture shift, because if you read all of the essential actions that are associated with Lever 2, that's part of the Effective Schools Framework, it does talk about prioritizing the decisions that you make as a district to, again, constantly review. And I think we heard that from some of our community today, that you want to review, any campus, what's their retention rate, what's their turnover rate, what is the average years of experience for the teachers on that campus, because you want to have a significant balance. So those are a lot of things that, from a district perspective, we can work closely with the Department of School Leadership to make sure that if we do have a campus that's in need, that has traditionally started school with, too many vacancies, or the average teacher years of experience is low, that we prioritize that campus in terms of our recruitment efforts, that we suggest possible movements and incentives for teachers to go to those campuses, and again, work with the principal on retention so that teachers stay, because stability is key. So I do think that Lever 2 is very, it's a huge district responsibility, but advocacy at the campus level and making sure that there's a good understanding of what's happening at the campus level is also critical to leverage that lever.
Thank you. And I do know that you all did make some efforts at the beginning of this year to make sure that low-performing campuses were fully staffed. So I mean, I appreciate your efforts in supplementing that. And my concern really is just that we need our strongest teachers at our lowest performing schools. And so if we're doing that as a district, I think that takes care of it. The only other thing that I wanted to say is I just wanted to recognize Ms. Reese, who's really done a fantastic job, really with this effective schools framework at Guillen. I mean, you can see most of the gains were double-digit gains, and that's very impressive. So I thank you for all your hard work, and I know that it is a lot of work. So thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Iribola?
First off, thank you, because it was a very comprehensive, the dip, the sip, and this, it was very comprehensive. The only thing I want to echo is what my colleague, Trustee Hernandez brought up. I call her Isabel, so I just had to think of her last name. I see that the goal for Canyon Hills specifically is to get a C, and I think part of the conversation, so first off, let me say with the sip and dip, I think it was amazing that the feedback that was in real time from the board meeting that we had not even a month ago was implemented so quickly into how we're going to start measuring and looking at how the district's done, and I can see it reflected here in the conversations that we've had. That being said, in that conversation, we talked about setting aspirational goals and not settling for something that was going to be, the next big step. So whereas I know this board doesn't really like the accountability rankings and just settling on that, I see that we said going for a C is what our goal is. I'd actually like to see that, to Isabel's point, Trustee Hernandez's point, to say, what can we do to get to a B? What are the steps? What are the resources? What can we do to push the ante and see? We're not going to just settle with a C, but we're going to go to a B. And that's a greater conversation. You guys are the experts, so I would defer to you, Ms. Saavedra, on that and how you would like to proceed. But I think if we set those aspirational goals, put those resources in, we have a talented team here that knows what they're doing and knows how to provide that support. The sky's the limit. And to Trustee Hanani's point, we've seen that in some of our schools with the double-digit gains. And so, whereas I think we're at a good spot, I'd like to see the ante raised a little bit, the bar raised a little.
Well, I think that we do have the formula for how to move a school in the right direction. I think it takes a lot of hard work and rolling up your sleeves, but we do know the formula. I mean, it takes a positive culture with everybody working together. It takes a strong curriculum for teachers to draw from, to plan lessons, and it takes high-quality instruction every single day, right? So those are, I mean, there's a lot that goes into those things, but those are that's the big three. So we know the formula. And you're right, we do have a great team that's working to support these campuses. I've met with the principals of several of these campuses so that they know that they have my full support as well. And so, again, alignment from the boardroom to the classroom, especially in situations like this, are critical. So we appreciate your support and the guidance from the board.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from any of the board members? There are no other questions. Are we ready to? We do have a speaker on this one, so if we have a speaker, Ms. Hanani.
Mr. Rossmore?
Hi, Board President Velarde, board members, Ms. Saavedra, my name is Ross Moore, President El Paso AFT. With regards to this, as far as the data validity, again, ditto. My concern falls more under the policy and law boundaries that are established. I'm concerned in particular about Hart, where we've had problems with excessive reports being required, duplicate reports being acquired both this year and last year. I've brought those to Dr. Gonzalez's attention. They still are kind of going on, so I'd ask that an eye is kept on that, and we will advise you of issues along those lines. And I am very concerned. I believe leadership is the #1 lever, and both on the policy and law and the leadership of the CCTA principal, who has a long track record of ignoring those boundaries set in state law or district policy, and his leadership style led to multiple grievances or complaints against him. So, Mr. Dominguez said I need to talk to you again, and I will work closely with Mr. Paz on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I can make a motion.
Okay, please.
I move that the board approve the 2022-2023 targeted improvement plans as required by the Texas Education Agency for College Career Technology Academy, Canyon Hills Middle School, Guillen Middle School, and Hart Elementary School as presented.
We have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 0. The vote is 5-0. And then for the record, before we proceed, I would just like to state that Mr. Call had to leave for another commitment, and he left the board meeting at 7:15 PM. We still have a quorum of 5 board members who can take action on the remaining items. Okay, so we are now going to item 8, item 7, update on ESSER 3 project dashboard. Mr. Vasquez?
Yes, President Velarde and trustees, if you recall, I believe it was in September, we shared, or August, thank you, Mr. Vasquez. We shared with you an update on the spending of our ESSER money. At that time, the board provided a lot of feedback on what you would like to see forward-facing in terms of a dashboard for the community to track our ESSER projects and the funding. And so this evening, Maribel Macias and Daniel Vasquez will be sharing the work that the staff has done to seek your feedback as a board on what else you would like to see or whether we're on the right track so that we can finalize the document and begin to post it with information for the public.
Thank you, President Velarde, Superintendent Saavedra, members of the board. During our August regular board meeting, a request was made for an outward-facing ESSER dashboard. Today, we are here to seek your input and feedback on your proposed design. However, I want to take the opportunity to share timely information we received from the Texas Urban Council that aligns perfectly with today's presentation. If you notice, it's time for our halftime review. So it is time for us to seek feedback and information on our ESSER spending activities. Efforts can be reinforced at this time, and we're looking at the sustainable impact for student learning and finances. This will serve as a tool for our stakeholders. It's a perfect opportunity to share that with our district stakeholders and share the needs as we lead in this review. And it's so important, as we heard today, that we're always keeping our eye on equity and sustainability as we're using our ESSER funds. In phase 1, data collection, we identified student needs, we reviewed spending limits, and we looked at a tracking system, which is what we're going to get your feedback on today. Phase 2, we are assessing efficacy. What is working well? And it is important that we reflect, and we're always looking at the sustainability plan, which is that part of the phase 2. Moving forward, we're looking at the action plan. So we are reprogramming based on the feedback that we're receiving. Thank you for landing on our district strategic plan. That's going to lead us in moving forward to identify those big rocks that we're going to be improving on and the collaboration that we're going to continue to move forward to get the feedback. So in transitioning over, I do want to thank Ms. Nguyen that's here with us. She's strategic in working with all of our departments, ensuring that we're reviewing all of our plans and processes. And when we need to transition, we're ensuring that we're doing it with efficacy and putting performance objectives in mind so that we're looking at how we're going to manage the outcomes. With that, we would like your feedback on our outward-facing dashboard.
Board President Velarde, Ms. Saavedra, and trustees, my name is Daniel Vasquez. I'm the Director of External Funds and Fund Development. And as Ms. Macias prefaced, the packet or the item that you have in your packet looks a little different from what we've presented tonight because we got some timely updates this weekend at the Texas Urban Council conference. And so what we wanted to do was incorporate that into our presentation to give you a little bit of context as we move forward. But additionally, I also wanted to reflect upon some of the discussions we've had in the past so that way you have a stronger understanding of why we're presenting what we are tonight. So if you recall last July, the Board of Trustees approved our plan forward with the ESSER funds, and it was at that point where we shared the ESSER Bible with you, as Trustee Arubali referred to in August, the content that had every document that we had utilized. And in that moment, the trustees authorized the superintendent to have the authority to make adjustments, changes, or edits to our ESSER use of funds strategy as needed to accommodate growth and change. Additionally, in February of 2022, we provided our first update, and at that time, the superintendent was given the authority to make changes to our COVID return to school plans and strategies to avoid any limitations or hindrances in how we were proactively approaching the COVID crisis or managing the pandemic at the time, particularly as it related to our ESSER use of funds strategy. So when we presented our second update to the trustees in August, we received some very directed feedback that was very helpful in allowing us to move forward. And at that time, El Paso ISD, much like many other districts throughout the country, was facing some very, very critical questions. As was reinforced this past weekend at the Texas Urban Council Conference, spending across the board is taking place a little bit more quickly than can be or has been reported, which gives sometimes the impression that spending's not on par or not on track. The other thing is that given many districts are now coming out of the COVID cloud, they've been forced to make adjustments as to their strategic use of funds strategies and plans, because the initial use of funds approach was targeted so heavily at COVID mitigation. That included testing, masks, sanitation, health approaches. But as many districts now throughout the country are realizing, those focuses need to shift towards academic enrichment, student supports, social and emotional well-being. So I preface our history at the beginning of my comments to remind you that this is an ongoing and fluid process. And as Ms. Saavedra indicated a little bit earlier, we're now in a position where we're at a strategic reevaluation point in our process, and Ms. Macias reiterated that. And ultimately, El Paso ISD really did epitomize many of the issues that districts throughout the country were facing. We were contending with supply shortage issues. We were contending with labor shortage issues. So at many moments, we weren't able to move forward on certain items, and we had to focus on those areas where we absolutely could move forward. So based on all of those considerations, what we've done over the course of the last several weeks following the feedback that you provided us in August was we presented or created a template for a public-facing dashboard to track and monitor our ESSER use of funds approach. Now, in the August board meeting, Dr. Acevedo, you and Trustee Hanani had asked for us to be able to connect our use of funds strategies to specific outcomes. So I just want to set the table by letting you know that this dashboard, the purpose of that tool isn't to necessarily visually connect those dots, but to create a gateway or a pathway for us to now start connecting the outcomes of all of the other strategic initiatives and pursuits that we as a district have agreed upon tonight. So this public-facing dashboard will enable us to communicate to not only you, but to our public constituents how we're using our funds, where we're using our funds, and in those areas where we're required to make any strategic shifts or adjustments in our strategic and sustainability approaches. So if you take a look at the model that we have on the screen for you today, there's a couple of really promising things that I'd like to point out to you. So the first is that we're 39% through our grant period, and we've used 38% of our grant funds. I'm going to show you in a few moments why this is such an important highlight to point out to you. This public-facing dashboard breaks down all of our projects individually. It also indicates what the intentional or the original budget was, as well as what the current full budget is for those projects. And then it tracks what we've utilized or spent collectively as a district, as well as providing an individualized breakdown of where each project is at as far as its spending plan. So you'll notice some of those projects haven't moved, and it's because we've faced some of those issues that other districts are contending with, or our leadership team is having critical and strategic conversations about the sustainability or the continued impact, need, or efficacy of some of these projects. Many districts throughout the country are having to come to the table and reevaluate how these funds are going to be used to make sure that, number one, we can sustain the work that's being done. When we went through the process and the process of establishing what our ESSER plan was, we had several discussions, and Trustee Call even made comment that we've got to have a plan that will allow us to function and exist when ESSER ends. So that's where we're at now as a district, and that's what we're doing with our use of funds strategy and our use of funds plan. So if you take a look at the grid, it also gives you a breakdown of how and where those funds are being used categorically, our big rocks, our big initiatives, and our big spend. And then this gives a very, very composite look at how we are using our funds as a district. This will be a public-facing dashboard. It won't be provided in real time because from a financial perspective, we do need to capture the data and then be able to accurately reflect what was happening. So it'll probably be 30 days in the rear. So as the month ends, we'll post the update so that way everything can be captured accurately based on that spend rate. And it'll be housed on the EPISD website. One of our federal requirements for accepting the ESSER funds is that we keep publicly posted our use of funds strategy, as well as our COVID safe return to school plan, and any updates that we make. So on that same webpage that we've already set up on the EPISD homepage, we'll provide the link here as the red arrow indicates, where all of our community members can go and access the data that's on the dashboard. For some additional context, I wanted to share with you where we're at in comparison to some of the other districts throughout the state and in our region. So if you take a look at the slide here, you'll see that one of our neighboring districts has only utilized 28% of their funds, and this was as of July 28th, 2022. This is what's posted on their public-facing website as far as their tracking and their project measure. They don't have an interactive dashboard. It's just a project listing with dollars spent and dollars budgeted. It's listed by category only. Houston ISD, which is one of the largest districts in the country, has only utilized 36% of their funds as of November 2nd, 2022. Granted, they have a significantly larger ESSER budget than we do, but we are ahead of them as far as fund utilization. They do have an interactive dashboard and a project list, and their spending is listed by project, by campus, and department. And then lastly, the Dallas ISD has only utilized 18% of their funds as of June 30th, 2022. So the reason why I pointed this out was because in our August presentation, we received some feedback that just merely tracking the percentage of funds that have been used doesn't really necessarily provide the impact of where we're at progressively with our use of funds. So I would say collectively as a district to be 39% through the grant performance period and having utilized 38% of our funds compared to other districts in the region and in our community, we're doing a good job. And that's a collective effort from the staff that implements strategy, monitors and oversees, as well as our leadership team, who's been very, very diligent to have critical discussions and ask us critical questions about where we're aligning the use of our funds and how we can move that fund utilization forward. So to close, what I wanted to do was share with you something that was provided to us by the Texas Urban Council that articulates where we're at as a district. As Ms. Macias mentioned in her introductory comments, we as a district and the rest of the country who's utilizing ESSER funds is really at the ESSER halftime period. So what we've done over the course of the last 18 months, as Trustee Irabali mentioned at the August board meeting, was we tested a lot of our strategies, our hypotheses, and our theories over the course of year one. We learned some lessons, and then we had some strategic discussions about how we can move forward, and more importantly, how we can be sustainable and strategic and thoughtful in our next steps. So right now we're at the ESSER halftime point. Sorry, I'm a terrible halftime show. So this is where we're at now as a district. So what we will do over the course of the next 3 months is do some progress checks. These progress checks will really focus on what our big bet initiatives are. That's language that was phrased by the Texas Urban Council to really identify where we as a district need to move forward. So because you just approved the mission and the vision and the goals of our district, we can now have those conversations about how we create sustainability through our ESSER initiatives. That could include Montessori. That could also include our curriculum frameworks for both math and literacy, as well as other initiatives and objectives that Dr. Kennedy and Dr. Carmona are working on. Further, we're having discussions about how our allocations will impact the district, and this isn't just based on ESSER funding or ESSER allocations, but a really strategic alignment to how we utilize all of our resources, be it discretionary grants, our entitlement grants, or our other local funding opportunities. And lastly, and probably most important, this will really drive what our sustainability planning looks like. So to Trustee Call's point, we're now starting to articulate or visualize what our life after ESSER will and should look like. So the point of today's presentation was really to give you an update on where we're at the request that was made at the August board meeting for a public-facing dashboard, and to collect any feedback you may have on that tool and how we can use that tool, or what else you would like to see included in that tool. So with that, I'll open to any questions or suggestions you may have regarding the dashboard.
Okay, Ms. Hanani.
So what is actually going to be published? Just that project status dashboard?
So this is what the page will look like. And as I realized the way we cut it up so that way we could fit it on a slide, there's also going to be 2 links that will take us to a campus-based allocation of those projects. So any ESSER project that has campus-based allocations will also have a link so we can take a look. And it's just a listing very similar to some of the other districts that will show allocations that have gone to campuses, as well as what that utilization is.
Is that the one that we got in the August memo? It says ESSER campus spending dashboard. Does it look the same as that? It'll all be on this, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I actually, I don't like that it's hidden. It kind of feels hidden in the back to return to, I can't remember, return to school or something.
The return to school webpage?
Yes, because most of the big districts, they just literally have dallasisd.org/ESSER. So I think it would make more sense if we just had episd.org/ESSER, so that the idea here is transparency with the public.
I know that there's other, and I could talk to Mr. Rodriguez about that. Would it be beneficial to have a button on the, on the front page of the website where people can just click and they go straight there? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easier, at this point, because we're so far in, I think the easier that the public can have access to this transparent information, the better.
Can I ask a clarifying question there real quick?
Of course.
Because on the homepage, we do have a link for COVID and return to school. Are you asking us to have a button that's designated just for the public-facing dashboard, or a larger button that takes you to all things ESSER-related and COVID-related?
I think at this point, just because we've been so long without the dashboard, I think at least for now, having some sort of big flash, come see what we're spending our money on would be great, just because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I do believe the verbiage ESSER is going to be important, rather than, even though it's our COVID back-to-school plan, because people are not associating that with ESSER funding right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, they did be in the past, but not anymore.
And some schools do have it in their financial section, but I think having it in the back to school, I don't think that it would be very front and center. I saw that you said Dallas ISD didn't have a dashboard. They do have a very comprehensive dashboard that I'm looking at that has the project, the budget, the encumbrance, and the actual for everything. So I'm not sure why that was listed that way. But they do have a very comprehensive dashboard. And so I think that's why it's important for us, just as a namesake district in a large urban city, to make sure that we have as much information as possible. I'm fine with this, with the campus, with the dashboard, the project dashboard. My ask would be just that we have it as comprehensive, as published as quickly as possible. I think that we're just very late in publishing this information to the public, so whatever we can get published as quickly as possible, I think would be great. And then anything that we're adding on, if there's more information to deliver to the public, we can add it. But I think the most important thing is just to get it out there.
Our goal is to have it public by December,
Okay.
if not sooner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Acevedo.
On this, I echo a lot of what Trustee Hanani just said in terms of putting it on the website. I think this is probably another conversation, but it was long overdue to overhaul the website, and I still think there's some things that are difficult to access, so I would really not want this to be difficult to access. I really wish that we would have had at least like some sort of live demo to see this rather than the screenshots, because I'm not fully comprehending what happens on each project. Like, for example, HVAC conversion in high occupancy areas, gyms, cafeterias. I think you said that there's more detail once you click on it. Is that correct?
A little bit, yeah, just pretty much. It provides a brief description of what it is, any progress or updates that we may have had. And really what it is, because it's not a live tool where we have data entry doing it, it's our monitoring tool. So as we're working with departments and we're working with cabinet to provide updates, essentially what we're doing is we're taking the data off of our monitoring tool, which is our smart sheet internally, and we're populating that per, what was suggested at the August 4th meeting.
Yeah, like I think if I was a member of the public looking at this, I'd want to know what schools are doing it, for example, and get a little bit more details and saying, okay, like $1 million was designated at X, Y, and Z school for HVAC or something. Just to have a little bit more transparency on how this money is being allocated, rather than just kind of grouping it together. Because then what it makes me think is, well, if that's all you're really doing, like transferring from this to that, I don't see why this can't already be up, you know? So I think we have to be really intentional in how we're presenting this data, but as well, very complete so the public has an idea of that this is transparent.
And Dr. Acevedo, if you'd like to schedule some time so that we can sit down and actually show you what it looks like, feels like when you click on the, on the stuff, and any other specific suggestions, we would be more than happy to visit with you or any of the board members for that matter.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll take you up on that.
Thank you, Mr. Ribali.
The only thing I would like to see is the document for ESSER is 570 pages long, and there's like, to go from the project number, so we see in here from the dashboard, it says Project 2, it gives a title, student attendance and tracking systems, it talks about the money. You say when you click on it, you get at least some information. I think to even alleviate what Dr. Acevedo's concerns are, if you click on Project 2 and it takes you to what the actual Project 2 documentation is, it actually outlines what school it is, what the timeline is, and all the information that's outlined in it. I don't know if we're still updating that 570-page document or not. I don't know. Because we got the hard copy and online, I haven't compared the two. But I think distilling that down to a much smaller bite-sized thing to where people can actually understand could alleviate most of those concerns. Just because I think the last 200 pages account for projects, and I think the first 370 is, if I'm not mistaken, star data and some other things. So if we can just break it out to a separate document, I think that can be a supportive mechanism. But outside that, I'm happy to see movement on this. I'm actually pretty excited. I do think it's going to help track it. To Dr. Acevedo's point, I think knowing where the money's being spent by campus, I don't know how easy that is or what kind of flexibility that kind of analysis comes with it. But I do think that's part of the conversation that we were having back in August. So that's the only other, I think, component I'd like to see in the next iteration is really the campus level ones. And I lied, the second one is also a distillation of that 570-page document into what are the projects. I don't think the general public really cares. I don't want to say cares, but is too attentive to the first 300 pages, but maybe the last 270, since it directly impacts their students' educational experience, it might be good to break it out.
We can look into that for you.
Thank you.
Ms.
I have
Nandi,
a clarifying question, sorry. I just want to be sure. So I know this is listed out by project, but the total expenditure does add up to the percentage of grant funds that are being used, right? Because that's the idea, is that we're showing everything the money's being spent on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, I do have a question. Can you bring it back up again? There you go. Okay, so first thing, I'm just making an observation here. It looks like on the chart, it's going to be a scroll down because I'm adding up those numbers and they're not adding up to the top, right? And then by the use of the colors, we're going to see other lines underneath. Okay, my question, because we're talking about the sustainability piece, and so I know in our, I don't know if it's the last meeting or previous meeting, we did realize that there are costs that we're using ESSER funds for that are permanent costs that will continue to exist beyond the life of ESSER. Is that still correct today? Or are all the funds being dedicated only to one-time expenses?
No, I would say that your previous comment is correct, which is why when you think about halftime review, that we're in the process right now as we're building our budgets going forward with strategic investments and our direction going forward. that we're building a sustainability plan so that when ESSER goes away, we're in good stead financially. And that, with staffing or with any other things. And we're also looking at minimizing the number of long-term costs. That's why we talked about startup. So there may be programs that come between now and 2024. If we used ESSER money, it would be startup money. But again, there would be a sustainability plan to continue to move forward with that programming beyond ESSER.
Okay, so then with respect to that sustainability plan, then I think it would be important that somewhere on this dashboard that we're able to see what costs are currently being covered that are expected to be continuing permanent costs that will live beyond ESSER, and then how are we strategizing then to continue to either cover those costs or back away so that we don't find ourselves in a position where we're spending money all of a sudden and we no longer have a source of funding to cover that. And I think that's important that somehow, some way on this dashboard, it jump out. I mean, for me, I'm very, very much want to watch that point and make sure that the district doesn't find itself in financial trouble because we're continuing with costs without a funding source to cover those costs.
Well, what I would share with you, Mr. Velarde, is that I can see where it may be easy for the dashboard to color code those one-time versus long-term costs. I'm not sure that the dashboard is going to be the place where we're going to be able to articulate the sustainability plan. However, we can include an additional link as we work through that plan and update the board and the community about where we are.
Sustainability plan link would work just fine, just so that we know.
Perfect.
That there's an easy way to get to that piece.
Sounds good.
And if I may add, I just want to take you back a couple of months as we were developing our budget. And I think it's specifically in the month of May and early June, where we reviewed the three-year forecast and then our estimated shortfall of budget based on the way we were going to carry our teachers and the pay increases we proposed and adopted in June. And so I can pull all that data out and give you a summary that we can share just to give you remind you of how the plan was to sustain what we were proposing.
Okay. Well, that's exactly what's driving my question.
Yes.
Is that day when we were facing that potential deficit. Yeah. Okay.
I just have one more thing.
Dr. Acevedo.
As we're looking through this, I just want to be cognizant of the public. Not everybody knows the educational terms or jargon or something like that. So when I see SEL, if I didn't know what that meant, let's spell it out and be more direct with what those things are.
Good point.
Good feedback, thank you.
Okay. There being no other comments, there is no action on this one that I see here. So with that said, thank you so much for the report. And we will continue with our board meeting. We will now go to item 8, our consent agenda. And before I ask board members for any interesting agenda items, I do want to announce that item 8.I.1 has been withdrawn from the agenda at the administration's request. So with that said, board members, are there any items that you would like to have pulled so that we can address separately?
8E.
8E.
No, I. 8I1.
Well, 8I1 has been removed. So going back, Dr. Acevedo, it's 8E?
Yes. Correct.
Okay. The internship affiliation? Okay. Any other items that we need to handle separately? There being no other items, can I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve, or second, whichever you
Do
want.
a second?
I second.
I'm assuming we have a motion and a second. All in favor, with the exception of item 8E?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, item 8E, Dr. Acevedo, you're going to step out on this one? Okay. Approval of internship affiliation agreement between El Paso Independent School District and the University of Texas at Arlington. Do we have a motion for item 8E?
Yes. I move the board approve the internship affiliation agreement between EPISD, El Paso Independent School District, and the University of Texas at Arlington as presented.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. How many of us are left? 4-0? Okay. We still have a quorum. Okay, Dr. Acevedo, you may return.
Go Tigers. Can I say that? My daughter's playing basketball right now.
So then that takes us to item 9, items on next month's agenda.
Yes, I'll be brief and very quick, trustees. In December, as you see there, 2016 bond construction quarterly report will be presented to the board. In addition to that, we'll bring you phase 2 of the board directional documents, which will be the final strategic levers, the essential actions, the key targets, and you all will be adopting the superintendent's evaluation at that meeting as well. In January, we have a number of reports that we'll be presenting on facilities, workers' compensation, and an internal audit quarterly report. Most importantly, we'll be calling for school board elections in January and approval of the elections contracts and all of the things associated with that. In addition to my summative evaluation as a school, as I'll be celebrating my first year, or complete year here in El Paso ISD. And then also January is Special Board Recognition Month. So that's a
Awesome.
forecast for December and January.
Thank you, Ms. Ayavedra. And before adjournment, I just want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you, the team who's here, that are here every board meeting, and you're dedicated and committed to helping us get this board meeting done in as most efficient manner as possible. I want to thank the board for just the teamwork that we have and our ability to be able to work together and make some very big decisions. I want to send out, they're not here, but all of our EPISD team who are in the schools, in this building, that don't come here regularly, but I'm so thankful and grateful to each and every one of you for the work that you do. I really do believe that this is the best district, and it's because of all of you that are able to make that happen to our community. Thank you so much for being here, for the comments that you have. We do listen. We do take that to heart. So I want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving with your families. And with that, I will move to adjourn. Thank you, everybody. It is 8:02. Thank you all. Have a great Thanksgiving.